Good afternoon. Today we're going to cover integration of even powers of sine and cosine. Before we had done integration of odd powers, something like integral of sine cubed of x, and we would rewrite it as the integral of sine x times sine squared of x. And for the sine squared of x, we could plug in 1 minus cosine squared of x, multiplied all that out, and we could integrate it that way. Well, today we're going to be talking about even powers. So if you look at the top of page 426, you will need to remember these two identities. Sine squared of x is equal to 1/2 minus 1/2 cosine of 2x. And cosine squared of x, by the way, that's a typo in your book. It says sine squared again. It's cosine squared, is 1/2 plus 1/2 cosine of 2x. So we're going to be using these a lot today. So the first example, 83.1, is the integral of cosine squared x dx. And if you look at it, there's just no way to make a u substitution, because if u was cosine of x, du would be negative sine of x, and there's no negative sine of x in here. So instead, what we'll do is we'll put this in for cosine squared of x. So we'll have the integral of 1/2 plus 1/2 cosine 2x, and all of this is dx. So we can rewrite that as the integral of 1/2 dx plus, I'll pull that 1/2 out in front. I could have done it on this one as well. All right, so we know the integral of 1/2 dx is 1/2 x plus 1/2 times, we have to make a u substitution. U will be 2x, so du will be 2 dx. So there's a factor of 2 here that isn't here, so this is times 1/2, and this becomes cosine u du. All right, so we have 1/2 x plus 1/4. What's the integral of cosine u? Yes, it's sine u, and then don't forget your plus c because it's not a definite integral. And then the last thing we do is we plug back in for the u. So 1/2 x plus 1/4 sine of 2x plus c. All right, so that's not too bad. Let's go on to the next one. 83.2 is the integral of sine squared of x times cosine squared of x dx. So you probably can guess, we'll just substitute in for sine squared and for cosine squared. So this will be the integral of 1/2 minus 1/2 cosine of 2x times 1/2 plus 1/2 cosine of 2x dx. So we'll go ahead and use FOIL and multiply this out. So we'll have the integral of 1/4, and then the outer and the inner terms will cancel, so we don't have to worry about them. And then negative 1/2 times positive 1/2 is minus 1/4 cosine squared of 2x dx. So there's that cosine squared again. The only difference is this was cosine squared of x, which became this right here. So cosine squared of 2x means we're going to have a 2x here. So every time we have a 2x here, it'll actually be double that. So this will become 4x when we substitute in. So we'll have the integral 1/4, the integral of dx for this right here, then minus 1/4 times the integral of this is 1/2 plus 1/2 cosine squared, not 2x, but 4x dx. All right, so the integral of a fourth dx is 1/4 x. And then this is 1/4 times 1/2, so that'll be minus 1/8 x. Minus a 4 times minus a half would be, or positive 1/2 would be minus 1/8 times the integral of oh, that's not cosine squared, sorry guys. That's just cosine. All right. So minus 1/8 times the integral of cosine 4x dx. And then we have our u is 4x. Our du is 4 dx. So there's that 4 that's not here. So this will be 1/4 x minus 1/8 x minus 1/8 times 1/4. And that's the integral of cosine of u du. The integral of cosine is sine. So this is a fourth minus an 8. So that's 2/8. So that becomes 1/8 x minus 1/32. Integral of that is sine. We can go ahead and substitute back for u as 4x and then plus c. All right, so that involved a couple of different substitutions. All right, last one for this lesson. Integrate sine to the fourth of x dx. So what we need to recognize is that that's the same as sine squared of x times sine squared of x, right? So we can say this would be 1/2 minus 1/2 cosine 2x times the same thing. All right, so use FOIL and multiply that out. So we'll get the integral of 1/4. Outer is minus a fourth. Inner is minus a fourth. So that would be minus 1/2 cosine of 2x. And then this times this is negative times negative is positive. Half times a half is 1/4. Cosine squared 2x, and all of this is dx. All right, so the integral of 1/4 dx is 1/4 x. We can just get rid of that. And then this one will be minus a half. And integral will let u be equal to 2x. du is equal to 2 dx. So there's a 2 that's not here. So that's times a half. Cosine of u du. Plus, we'll put a 1/4 out. Oh, is that right? Yeah, that's a fourth. Yes, okay, so then this one though is going to be, all right, 1/4 times, now we have to substitute that thing in again because this is cosine squared of 2x. So that'll be times the integral of 1/2 plus 1/2 cosine, not 2x, but 4x. Sorry, I ran out of room there. Okay, put this in parentheses so I don't forget this 1/4 has to multiply by both of these. Okay, so 1/4 x minus 1/4. The integral of cosine is sine, and u was 2x, so 2x. Plus, this times this is 1/8, and the integral of 1/8 dx is 1/8 x. And then 1/4 times a half will be plus 1/8 times the integral of cosine of 4x. So here we got u is 4x, du is 4 dx. So we have to multiply by that 1/4 again. And then that's the integral of cosine u du. All right, so we've got a 1/4 and a 1/8. That's 2/8. So 3/8 x minus 1/4 sine of 2x plus an 8 times a fourth is 1/32. Integral of cosine is sine. U was 4x. And then don't forget the plus c. There we go. All right, so that's it for lesson 83. Tomorrow I'll teach 84. Friday will be work day, and the test will be on Monday, and we'll be taking the test in Zoom. So I'll be able to see all of you while you're taking the test. I will put one page up at a time. You can write them down. You can work them out. You'll work them out on your own paper and then upload them. Take a picture of it, upload it to Canvas just like you have in the past, but I'll be watching you take the test. So we'll do that on Monday. All right, I'll talk to you tomorrow. Have a good afternoon.